Good morning. I'm Tricia Hart. I'm the developmental senior minister of this congregation, and it is always nice to look out and see all of you. I want to thank Sam for all of his music, but for that piece, which was a meditation on there's a whole lot of Unitarian Universalist words showing up in today's service, and that was an arrangement of a hymn that we don't sing very often. It's in the Teal hymnal, and that one's by Jim Scott, right? By Jim Scott, one of our UU musicians. Let this be a house of peace, is what he calls it. The call to worship this morning is also from another Unitarian Universalist, now deceased friend and colleague and one of my many mentors. Her name was Elizabeth Tarbox. She was a minister in Massachusetts. I followed her at one of the congregations where she served, but I met her on Star Island, and I met her as a storyteller, and she helped me learn that is really at the heart of Unitarian Universalist worship, is the stories that we tell. At least so it seems to me. Elizabeth wrote this: "And so I say ours is a story of faith and hope and love. I say it is our need for one another that binds us together, that brings us laughing and limping into relationships, and keeps us at it when we otherwise might despair at the fix we are in. I say it is the holy we need, the eternal beyond our comprehension, and one place we can find it is here, working and worshiping together. And I say there is a transcendent value worthy of our loyalty, upon which we may set our hearts, and its divine manifestation is love." Let us light the chalice. Melinda's going to help to light it, yes, and we're going to help by saying the words together. We kindle this flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to Sunday worship at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, Vermont. Today is Sunday, March 19th, 2023, and spring is on its way. I notice it here in northern Vermont, primarily in the skies at first, in the increasing daylight, the geese honking and flying mostly north, small birds singing in the treetops, and the sun setting due west. And tomorrow will be the spring equinox at 5:24 p.m. Yay. I am Melinda Lee, a member of our worship associate team, and would like to thank and praise all who made this service possible, all the many, many people. And as you were walking into the sanctuary today, I was wondering if anyone has noticed anything different as they walked in. Yes, Mary. The what?
The pictures are gone.
Okay, all right. The pictures are gone? Okay. Anyone? Yes, Fred in the back. Okay, so if everyone looks and see the candelabra, those are a new appearance here. Yes.
You moved the name tags.
We moved the Good, you noticed that too. So the candelabra have been in the vestibule in the corner. I've never noticed them, and I've been here 20 years. And both the labels moving. Did I see a hand raised? Yes? You've noticed a change also. Good for you, good observation, because there's now a spruce up committee that's sprucing at spring cleaning, and they're changing the vestibules both here and on the side to make things look a little different, a little more welcoming, a spring change for us. So keep your eye on the small changes, just like we're trying to do with spring. Unitarian Universalism comes from many traditions and backgrounds, and we welcome everyone and those who share our concern to build a local and world community based on love, compassion, justice, respect, and care for the environment, and looking for meaning in their lives. Ours is a non-creedal society where we share principles and traditions, and these can be found written in the first pages of our gray hymnal, the very, very front of it, if you want to look them over. Yes. Do I see a hand? Oh. No. Okay, I think that's a stretch, maybe. Okay, that's Leo, though, I know. As part of our concern, we acknowledge that the land we enjoy and where our buildings are located and where the trees stand waiting for spring is part of the ancestral lands and hunting grounds of the Western Abnaki peoples who still live here. We mourn the intentional historical erasure of their culture and the loss of lives that occurred as part of the European settlement. And we, and myself, I strive to understand what this means for us as neighbors and current stewards of the land. So it's a pleasure to see everyone here, and wonderful to know that more people are joining us through the live streaming service and in the week to come. So a kind of a shout out to those people who are joining us online this morning. I'm looking, I think, towards the camera. But if anyone here is here for the first or second time, would you be willing to raise your hand, and so we can acknowledge you and give you a special welcome? Thank you, a nice raised hand there. Welcome, okay. And another one over there, two more, thank you. Okay. We have some people who especially like to welcome people, though we all can do that too. Susan Warner-Mills and Marilyn Brill, and if they could show where they are today, good. And their committee is joined by Mary Harrington. So Mary, could you stand up? There you are. She's just joined this team, and we're happy you've done that. And they'd be happy to talk with you and answer any questions about our society. And there's also a card in the pew, which you're welcome to fill out and put in one of our baskets here if you'd like to be in touch with anyone here. Okay, we have a few announcements, very few today. Our coffee hour will be held downstairs in the community room after the service. And now Rebecca Gurney, who is a member of our board and a former worship associate and current poet, where are you, Rebecca? Would like to make an announcement.
I haven't brought any poetry today. Thank you. Good morning. You may have seen on the screen as you were settling in this morning, immediately after the service at 11:30, the board is hosting a gathering in the parlors. So this is a thing that we've just started doing last month, and we will do it this month, next month, and the following month, so through May. One of the purposes of the Board of Trustees, or one of the parts of our job description that is written down somewhere, is this idea of linkage, which is it's our job to be in close conversation as much as we can. So this is a very informal, drop-in opportunity. We hope you'll grab coffee downstairs or tea and bring it up with you to the parlors. And if you can't stay today, consider coming in one of those future months. There'll be one a month. Or there are lots of ways to connect with board members if there's something that you would like to talk about. So you can look for anyone with one of these blue ribbon name tags. And there are several of us here. Board members, raise your hands. Oh, almost all of us maybe. Well done. You can also email board@uusociety.org. Last month we had about, 12 or 15 folks, and they brought wonderful questions about things like, How on earth does the board decide about ... Or, I heard this thing was going to happen. Can you tell us more? So if you have things like that on your list, please take this invitation, drop in. We'd love to see you. Thanks so much. Thanks, Melinda.
Now let's take a moment to greet our neighbors with a smile, a nod, a heart tap, or whatever feels comfortable to you today.
It's so great to see all of you here this morning, and it's great to see the sunlight and the promise of spring, and it'd be great for us to sing this hymn together. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing hymn number 38, 38, Morning Has Broken. Morning has broken like the first morning, blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for the springing, fresh from the sweet the rains do fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprouting completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden saw plain. Praise creation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day. Thank you. Please be seated.
Good morning. So now is the time I'd love to invite Penny and any children or those young at heart to come join us in the center area here. We're going to have a story today. I'm Margot Whitcomb. I'm the Faith Development Assistant here for Erica Reef, who is our Director of Lifespan Faith Development. She's away doing OWL training. And for those of you who are not familiar with the UUA, know she is not training to become an owl. It might be a good opening question for you when you speak with us afterwards. What exactly is OWL training? Very worthwhile. Good morning, everybody. So this month's theme is vulnerability. couple of weeks back, the families and I reflected on this in Family Chapel. Anybody remember that? And we decided that vulnerability is kind of a big word, kind of a broad term. Does anybody remember how many syllables it was? Vulnerability. Yeah, 5 plus maybe one more. Let's say it together. Vulnerability. 6 total. Very big word. So, do any of the children remember, because it was such a big word, and I don't think really any of you knew about it, although as adults we know all about it. Anybody remember what it means or what we came up with? Or yeah, Charlotte. Where you take good care of something. Well, you should especially take good care of yourself because you feel vulnerable, which is kind of, anybody else remember what we talked about? Yeah, Colin. Oh, I missed that. Say it again.
I don't get why Voldemort is called Voldemort if he doesn't have a face.
Oh, well, that I can't speak to. I would never relate Voldemort. She's asking about Voldemort. Would he ever be related to vulnerability? I think Voldemort is probably the opposite of vulnerability. Because vulnerability, at least in our, adult circles, sort of feels like we're, at risk of losing something or danger or something of that. And remember, we did a craft after we talked about vulnerability. Does anybody remember what we did or have what we did? Oh, maybe all of you weren't here. We made worry stones. Remember, we made worry stones and worry dolls because vulnerability manifests itself to a certain extent in worrying, in thinking about projecting a future that hasn't happened yet. Wow. What a concept. Now, what your children might not know is that nobody does worrying better than adults, right? Especially parents. Oh, we can really spend a lot of time and energy doing worrying in very elaborate ways. And you know what else? It doesn't usually help or change anything most of the time, but we can devote more than our fair share of time to it. So I'm delighted. Yes, Collins. Collins is saying, especially for those of you at home, because she doesn't have a mic, she's saying that she and many of her peers feel like they are the ones who actually can do more worrying. Well, this story is for all of us. I'm delighted to share it with you. It's a clever story about worrying, but through the eyes of a child. And like most children's stories, it's very simplistic and funny, but like the best of stories for all ages, I found it quite profound and pretty on point. So I am fortunate to have James Stewart and Sam joining me in telling our story today. Will you come up, James? And I'm also asking all of you in the congregation for a choral response in unison, because as you know, I really like that. And I like it when we're all telling the story. So I hope folks will play along at home as well. You can make as much noise as you like there, most possibly. And here we can make a lot of noise too. And the children, of course. So it's just one simple line. We can be as loud as we want to. And your line is, now that's a worry. Let's practice it, okay? Now that's a worry. Well done, with vigor. Okay, James and I will cue you when it's time to say it. though the words won't appear on the screen this time. So this story is a worry worrying you by Farida Wolf and Harriet May Savitz, illustrated by Marie Letourneau, published by Tanglewood Publishing. I urge you to purchase this book or pick it up from the library. It's really got great illustrations as well. Do you ever have a worry that just won't go away? Just what is a worry anyway?
A worry is a thought that stops you from having fun, from feeling good, or from being happy. But don't bother looking for a worry because you'll never find it. It's invisible.
But it seems very real. Suppose, now just suppose that 100 elephants come to tea, and you discover that you don't have any tea bags. Uh-oh, what will you do with a herd of thirsty elephants? Now that's a worry.
But you can get rid of that worry by offering the elephants lemonade instead. Elephants love lemonade.
You can feel tired from worrying, sad or sick. A worry can feel like a heavy sack is on your back, only it isn't there.
Now, suppose a gorilla at the playground borrows your skateboard but doesn't give it back when he said he would.
You give yourself a stomachache because you are sure he will keep it forever.
Now that's a worry.
But you can get rid of that worry by just going up to that gorilla and asking for it back.
Or maybe you can make a deal.
You borrow his rollerblades, and the two of you can skate together. A worry can scare you out of your shoes.
Suppose a monster moves in under your bed, and you're afraid if you go to sleep, it will do something horrible, so you stay awake all night.
Now that's a worry.
But you can get rid of that worry by singing lullabies until you both fall asleep. Worry can make a perfect day seem gloomy. Like, what if you go to your first day of school?
But you find out your new teacher is a bear.
What will happen when you
if you
forget
your homework? Now that's a worry. But you can get rid of that worry by thinking about how your teacher might feel in their new class, too.
You give her a jar of honey to make her feel welcome. Anyone can have a worry. Parents,
Teachers,
brothers,
sisters, friends. A worry isn't polite. It has no manners.
it doesn't ask if it can enter, it just barges in.
And it will stay as long as you let it. Suppose Uncle Herman is coming to visit, and you know he'll want to see you. But his voice is as loud as a roaring lion, and it makes you want to run away.
Now that's a worry. But you can get rid of that worry by remembering that you always have a good time with Uncle Herman because he likes to play board games with you, and he doesn't talk so much then.
Get out your checkers. Here he comes. Most of the time, something you worry about never happens.
Suppose you see a rhinoceros walking on the other side of the street. He's so big and so strong. What if he were to try to cross over and hit you?
Now that's a worry.
But the rhinoceros is on his way to the store and never even looks at you. A worry is as big or as small as you let it be.
Suppose a bald eagle makes a nest in your tangled hair, and you think everyone will laugh at you because, well, you have an eagle on your head.
In other words, it will build a nest so big you won't be able to get out of it.
Or even worse than that, it will think you are a newborn eaglet and fly away with you,
And you will never see your family again. Now that's a worry.
But you can stop that worry as soon as it gets started by getting a haircut. The eagle will just have to find another tangle to build its nest.
So, how can you get rid of a worry once it starts worrying you?
Well, you can imagine it away.
Put it in a suitcase and send it packing.
Seal it in an envelope, mail it away.
Stand it in the corner while you have fun.
Hide it in a closet. Just close the door.
Write a story.
Play with a friend.
Bake a cake. Face it. Look at your worry and see if it makes any sense. Tell it to go away. Discuss it with someone else. Work on the thing that is worrying you.
Think another thought. Remember a good time that you had. Think about what you were doing and not about what might happen. Replace a worry with a happy thought. Let a worry thought remind you to smile. A worry knows something that you should know.
And you can get rid of a worry anytime you want. It just takes a little patience. So don't worry.
You can do it.
Slam!
The end. So, I hope you enjoyed that. Now is the time where children through 4th grade are going to come downstairs with us. Penny will lead the way and I'll pull up the rear. And also, if there are any babes in arms or infants or toddlers who wish to come to the nursery, that will be open as well. Thank you. Enjoy the service.
As we let this story and this music settle into us, let us deepen together into a time of quiet meditation. Breathing in the breath of peace and breathing out the breath of love. Breathing in the breath of peace, breathing out the breath of calm, and come into a place of holy listening. First, I will read the joys and sorrows of our community, and then there'll be a time of silence. After this, there'll be some music, and you may come up to the table here where there's a basket, and you can remove a stone and place it on the table to represent a particular joy or sorrow that you have that we all don't know of, that you'd like to share. Joys and sorrows for Sunday, March 19th, 2023. Sorrow for the loss of the best Airbnb hostess kitty ever. Josephine, a fine, fuzzy example of the first UU principle, the inherent worth and dignity of everyone. What a lucky 14 years for me. Deborah de la Durante. And joy, and I'm wondering if you could stand up, Kate. Joy for Kate Bovey, winning silver and 2 bronze medals for the Special Olympics yesterday. Way to go. So may the joys and the sorrows of each of us be the joys and sorrows of all of us, reminding us of our shared humanity.
Wow. So here's the thing, folks. I love this building. I love what it stands for. I love the people here. And I love what we do for ourselves and our community. And I feel so fortunate to be with you. Thanks to folks over 200 years ago, we're lucky to be in this sacred and welcoming space. I feel fortunate to be a member of the congregation, and I want to do what I can do to make sure that this building, as well as our evolving values and community contributions, will be here 200 years from now. And that will take all of us to do our parts, some small, some larger. Now, if someone had told me 5 or 6 years ago that I would be an active member of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, I would have thought they'd been smoking something. My name is Jeb Spalding, and my involvement started very slowly. I decided to tag along with my then new life partner, now my wife, for a Sunday service. Elaine had been a longtime member, and all 3 of her children had benefited from the religious education and our whole life OWL programs. And even though Elaine had many obligations and a tight budget, she felt and still feels so strongly about the importance of the FUUSB that she became a generous monthly giver and a member of the Legacy Society, which means that she is set up to leave a bequest upon her death. I really didn't understand or appreciate that at first, and I resisted getting involved myself. I just kept Elaine company every now and then. But after a while, I began to enjoy the services. They fed my spirit in a way nothing else did and provided a new sense of community. Take, for example, last Sunday's service. I assume a lot of you are here or may have seen it. But the music from Sam and James and David Ruffin and the choir were fabulous. And the talks, our own version of TED Talks, from Jeff Duke and Woody Fulton and Mary Beth McNulty were not only interesting, but they were thought-provoking and mind-expanding. So I wanted to learn more about UUism and borrowed books from our library. How do you like that? Books in our library. I learned about and really appreciated our history and the explicit values of nourishing lives with love, caring, and compassion, building a community for justice, equity, and empathetic action, celebrating the wonders of life and spiritual transformation with boldness, joy, courage, and openness, and engaging all with kindness, understanding, and mutual respect. I decided I want to be a part of this group, and I felt really good about becoming an actual official member. It was just before COVID shut things down, and I sure was impressed by how quickly our team got virtual services and meetings up and running. We really do have a great team here. I began making small monthly contributions. I joined a Chalice Circle, enjoyed listening, learning, and sharing with other UU members that I had not known before. The 2 Chalice Circles I have been a part of use the monthly Soul Matters Path publication as the launching pad for our discussions. And if you haven't had a chance to discover this terrific resource, just one of many UU resources that are available to us, I highly recommend you do so by spending some time exploring our website. Well, I was asked to join the endowment committee, which is tasked with responsibly investing, managing, and supervising the society's endowments. And I learned more about past members who bequeathed modest and large amounts to sustain this building and our activities. Well, so my monthly contributions got a little bigger, and I too became a member of the Legacy Society. One thing led to another. I enjoyed joining the Board of Trustees and made more new friends. But I also gained a better understanding of the complexity of our finances that sustain this society. The fact is that despite strong management and great generosity from our members, in recent years, annual expenditures have been growing greater than incoming revenues. And that essentially means we must dip into reserves to pay our bills. Yeah, we're very strong, but that can't go on forever. The FUUSB is not only important to me and us, we are needed more than ever by our community. We are united in our commitment to spiritual growth and care for each other, but also united in our care for our community and in seeking truth and seeking and acting for justice, racial justice, climate action, radical welcoming, Sunday breakfast. The list goes on, and this little talk needs to end. This is an exciting time here at the FUUSB. I mean, you can see it if you come on a regular basis. I've noticed more new and younger folks showing up for services. Our members are as active as ever. We're about to welcome a new senior minister. It would be a wonderful way to welcome our new minister by seeing the number of members contributing to the Society's care and upkeep increase too. Personally, I'd rather have lots of small contributions than smaller number of larger contributions, though we need both and appreciate them both. The point is, we can all contribute something according to our means, and all are equal in value. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, choir. I love that song. I'm not sure that when I joined choir, 50,000 years ago in my first Unitarian Universalist church, that congregation would ever, that choir would ever consider singing anything by Carly Simon. It's pretty cool. The offering that happens every week. Good grief, is it snowing? Spring is coming. Sorry, I was distracted. We take up an offering every week to bring spring. No, to make sure that the congregation exists. Seriously, to make sure that the congregation exists now and in the future. And we do it, too, to remember that this is another way that we have to share the bounty of this congregation, of us, with the community and the life of this congregation in the ways that our values tell us matters. This month, this endless month of March, I'm sorry, I haven't been away yet this year. I'm about to. For a few days. In March, we're sharing the offering which goes to support the operating budget, which it does every week. We're sharing it with the Angel Fund. And I hope most of you know, but I'll explain it in case you don't. The Angel Fund was an extra cushion fund that was imagined and developed and added to the budget at the very beginning of the pandemic, when we really and truly didn't know what impact this massive global event would have on the very real lives of the people in this congregation. So we wanted people to worry a little bit less if they couldn't make a pledge or they couldn't fulfill their pledge that given year. And people responded to it. It seemed like the right thing to do for us to help each other through these hard times. So the Angel Fund is still with us. It has been with us and I think will continue for the future. And sometimes it's good to remember that it's there and have an opportunity to contribute to it. So today is one of those opportunities to contribute to it. Would you say together before we take up the collection, which it is possible, as it is every week, if you want another walk and you have something you'd like to put in the basket, you're welcome to do that, or give online or mail in a check later. It's all good. But let us say the words of our offering dedication to remind ourselves what we're doing here. With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice. So I thought it was great to have a story about worrying today. Did you like it too? I have quite a few worries at the moment. None of them about rhinoceroses or elephants. But one in particular, this coming Friday, 5 days from now, at the Northern New England Unitarian Universalist Ministers Retreat in New Hampshire, Peter and I will present our Odyssey. He's not here, but he's watching at home, and I hope you're working on it, honey. We will be presenting this thing, UU Ministers Speak, and Odyssey is an opportunity for a minister, or in our case, a co-minister team, to talk about the story of the journey of our ministry from beginning to end. It's not a thing that happens very often, and it especially hasn't happened much during the pandemic when we haven't gotten together in person as much, but that's what we'll be doing to 40 or so colleagues. We want to do a good job. We've been working on this for weeks, on and off, and we're trying to tell the whole story. Not all the details, but our stories from the beginning, including all the years before Peter and I even met 28 years ago. God, I'm old. Everything that led up to our becoming ministers, and how we did co-ministry for almost a decade, and why we stopped, and what we learned from the 11, I counted again this week, 11 Unitarian Universalist congregations that we have served, Peter and I separately or together. And not to mention, not to forget, a bunch of others that we've worked with briefly for one reason or another. We want to talk about what we know now that we didn't know then, which is a lot, how it changed us and our families, and what we will do next. And it will be organized, and it will be interesting and fascinating, in fact, and it will be over in 90 minutes. And I'm a little worried that we can be ready to do that by Friday. Now, that's a worry. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, it is. And that's only one of my worries. I am also worried about finishing the draft of FUUSB's new safety policies and working with Christina as she finishes preparing the draft of next year's budget, both by Tuesday, this Tuesday afternoon. I'm worried. I'm mostly grateful, but I'm still a little worried about the ministerial search team members and how they're holding up along with their families, and how the ministerial candidates that the team is considering are holding up, and their families too. I'm worried, really, about the war in Ukraine. I'm worried about artificial intelligence. I'm worried about the banking crisis. I'm not making any of this up, by the way. I'm worried about the banking crisis in general, but also because I'm worried about our retirement accounts shrinking and whether we will ever be able to sell our condo and buy or rent another place somewhere in Vermont. I'm worried that I actually haven't scheduled enough time to do my taxes. I am worried about how much longer our 12-year-old car will hold out and how much longer Peter and I will hold out, given that we are a lot older than 12. I'm worried about the 2024 election cycle and the housing crisis in Burlington. Maybe I need to pull an all-nighter in order to finish my part of our Odyssey, but I'm worried that I can't actually pull all-nighters anymore. I'm wondering, do I have time to give our dog Waldo a bath this week? Because he really needs one. Waldo woke up yesterday as I was reading this part of the sermon out loud, and he was so worried he came over and jumped up in my lap. Not about the bath, he likes that, just the way I was sounding. So, take a breath. It did, didn't it? I love March. So I took a breath, which helped me. I want you to take a breath yourselves, for yourselves and all your worries. You might even, if this is the kind of thing you like to do, you might imagine putting all of your worries into a pile, maybe each one in its own little imaginary box, and tying them up. And then, do you have room on the pew next to you for just putting your pile of worries? No, that's too, I'll put mine over here. They will be there waiting for you when you leave today. You don't have to think about them now, or maybe you can forget to take them home with you. I've been worried, too, a bit about this sermon, because I want to talk to you about this congregation, your congregation, from which I will retire quite soon. And I want to do this in a way that you can hear and take it in. So how is the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington doing now in its 213th year? That's if you go back to 1810, even before the wonderful building was built. And what does the future look like, maybe, from where I sit? There is nothing like working on a budget to focus one's attention. I mean, you can get very focused on the numbers, the ones that go up, the ones that maybe can go down. The point is the bottom one, it's got a balance. But if you take a step, even one step back, and try to look at the budget as a whole, budgets tell us what matters most, because they tell us how much revenue is generated and how it is spent. And what happens, if you've got a bunch of different years of budgets to look at, what happens when there's not enough money to keep funding the same things consistently, what gets cut as a result, and what happens when there is enough money to add something new, something important that makes a real difference. This is true in congregations. This is true in businesses, in governments. Do any of you remember the Paul Ryan budget? It was a dozen years ago, it was 2011. Then Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, presented a budget, which I credit with bringing the phrase about how a budget is a moral document into every conversation. Remember that? And he didn't disagree with that idea, that a budget is a moral document. His plan would have sharply reduced how much money the federal government transfers, some people would put it this way, from the rich to the poor in our country. And the moral principle behind Ryan's budget was that it is better, it is morally right to have people keep their own money. They earned it, after all. This is what somebody I was reading said. They earned it, after all. So giving it to people who didn't earn it would unfairly punish them, meaning the rich people, and reward others unfairly, lowering our incentive as individuals to do well. It's important to listen. There are some really big ideas in that, and clearly articulated in this budget. And here's what President Obama said, one of the many things that he said. He said about this budget, "We believe that in order to preserve our own freedoms and pursue our own happinesses, we can't just think about ourselves. We have to think about the country. We have to think about our fellow citizens with whom we share a community. And we have to think about what's required to preserve the American dream for future generations." The Ryan budget, which did not get passed as it was presented, but all of that and the hullabaloo did accomplish some important things, I think. It got me thinking about budgets as moral documents, which I'm not sure I had before. And it got a bunch of radical nuns, led then by Sister Simone Campbell. They've organized themselves now into a group called Network, but then they were known as the Nuns on the Bus. Anybody remember the Nuns on the Bus? They traveled the country several times, I think at least 4 tours of the country over several years on these big fancy buses. They're like celebrity buses, you know, with televisions. My kids always think this is amazing, and swivel chairs and things like that. But they didn't do it for the luxury bus. They did it in order to get out and talk to people. They went to many cities and towns around the country where they met with poor people and community leaders and church people, including Unitarian Universalists. And they talked about not only what was wrong with Paul Ryan's ideas, but what priorities would stand out for them in a truly faithful moral budget. People, mercy, compassion, hope. It really bugged them. I talked to some of them a couple of years later. It really bugged them that Paul Ryan was a good Catholic and that he was not, they felt, acting on the religious beliefs that they thought were true to that faith. I heard Sister Simone talk about this at the Revolutionary Love Conference at Middle Church in 2013. Oh my gosh, that was 10 years ago. Some of you have been. How many of you have been to that conference? Oh, you ought to think about it. Middle Church. What's it called this year? I don't know, but look up Middle Church. It's in New York, and Revolutionary Love would probably do it. And it really is a life-altering experience. So I heard Sister Simone at that conference. I fell in love immediately. I wanted to go and work for her, and I didn't. But here's the part of the story that she told that stuck with me. Sister Simone and the other sisters in her order, they knew what they believed. They knew, they were quite clear about what Paul Ryan got wrong and what a better solution would include. And they were determined not just to stay in their house and talk about it with each other, but to go out and talk to people about it. And their plan to how they would do that was small, because they didn't have much money. They didn't actually have any money. And some business people that they consulted with asked them, how would you do this work of spreading this word if cost was not your first concern? If more money could be raised, what would you do? And that question changed everything. Actually, it was in that conversation that they thought, how can we show up? Well, we could get a bus. This Unitarian Universalist Society is not a monolith. Everybody here does not think exactly the same way, and that is a very excellent thing. But I think this congregation, like many, but maybe not all UU congregations, agree on some really central important things that you know are true. You know that this congregation should be a place where people, all people, as close as we could get that, are welcomed and loved and encouraged to grow into the beings they could be who will love the world and make it better in a whole lot of different ways. You want that to be true because you know that's how change happens. And you hope for more justice and mercy and beauty and peace in this life. And you believe, I think, you believe that your congregation, this building, these grounds, these minds and hearts can be a community where these beautiful truths can be real for a time or in glimpses on Sundays and other days as you welcome and get to know people who lovingly push you to become something more than you already knew you could be. I kind of think that's what you were talking about, Jeb. That's what I heard. So, how do you build a budget for a congregation in a, I'll call it, religiously faithful way? How do you make sure that the most important pieces of this congregation's life is manifest in the budget so that the places where the energy is showing up here are most important? So I'll just list a few of those. Faith development, that what Margot was doing what Erica does every week, what the teachers and the volunteers do, it's hard for me to come up with any other part of this congregation which is more important than that. From taking care of little ones in the nursery to inviting the smaller children to make a play, to telling the stories like Margot does. And James, it's wonderful to have you in these stories too. And Sam, who gets very, very little notice about the musical role that he plays in these stories, but he can handle that, apparently. Faith development is enormously important. It's not a big piece of the budget right now, but I know that it's important. I know that justice is really important too. That's actually a very small part of the budget at the moment. It's a sustaining, minimal, we can find the money to do what we need to do, and we can do some things without spending any money at all, kind of part of the budget. Worship is a bigger part of the budget, and I think it should be, and music. Membership is another part of the budget which is incredibly important as I look at the membership committee people, and that's also being done right now with, it's not super clear in the budget that that is a priority of this congregation, and it is a big priority because you're right, Jeb, the congregation is changing, more new people are coming, and it is not okay to handle that situation the way UU congregations used to handle it, which could be distilled into thinking, well, you know, most people aren't here, but some people will find us, and they will be the right people already, and they'll figure out how to make their way in the congregation. We don't really need to help them. Sorry, that may be more severe than you wanted to hear, but in many ways that was the thinking, and I don't think it actually serves us all that well. The building is a part of the budget. It's not the most important part, and that's for a bunch of good financial management reasons, but I don't want to forget the building, not because it's a shrine, even though I suppose in some way it is, but because this is the place where all that important work happens. It is the home of this congregation, maybe not all of it, but a lot of it. And it is the place to which we invite people to come in and be members and get involved and do the work of the congregation. It would be different and hard without the building, so we need to take care of the building. But the thing I want to tell you that may not be already clear to you is that the staff are the way that the fabulous staff are the way that people are encouraged and guided and celebrated. It is always involving some member of the staff that makes it possible for some new idea to become real and happening out where everybody can see and feel them. The creativity and the energy around this place is extraordinary this year. I've been here a few years and I'm just more and more clear. I don't know where it's going. I'm not worried about it though, because I think that that energy builds on itself. So the fabulous staff are how people are encouraged and guided and celebrated and how new ideas become real. It worries me that that's not showing up in the budget as much as I would hope, and this is what I mean. If you do some of the calculation that Christina is good at doing, you can look at staff levels. Anybody know what FTE stands for? Full-time equivalent. If you look at the just all of the jobs in this congregation, part-time and full-time, and you look at where that FTE level has been in the last close to 10 years, it's been flat. So what that means is, in practice, when, as Jeb says, some of the numbers are going down, something like 26 people died during the years of the pandemic who were members of the congregation. A number of those people were significant pledgers, and a couple of people moved away. All of that is completely normal, but it's been slow and hard, and we may be in a different time where we are becoming less dependent on the very large pledges and more dependent on the smaller ones. So what we've really been doing, what I've been doing, what what we've all been doing is I hate the phrase doing more with less. That's exactly what we have been asking the staff to do, is doing more with not more. And that's worries me. I'm not actually that worried about the size of the pledges. It makes me incredibly happy to look at the list of gifts and know that some of them are very small and some are very large and lots of them are in the middle, and it's amazing to me that that adds up to the income from the congregation in very unequal and wonderfully just ways. I love that. And it also makes me very happy to look at the ways that money is coming into this congregation in ways other than pledging. I'm not sure that you could know this, so I'll tell you, this is updated information. So far this year, through the middle of March, $13,000 has been contributed by members and friends, mostly in special gifts and one-time gifts. $1,400 of it came from the Spring Sing, which I guess was only a week ago, but it seems a little longer than that. And if you add in to that non-pledge giving, the shared offering, so far this year, that's $31,000 altogether, the shared offering plus other things. Those numbers are growing. Those numbers are higher than they used to be. And I personally think that's maybe a glimpse of the future that we're coming to. A little bit less singularly dependent on pledging and more accurately dependent on a number of gifts. I do worry that there are quite a few people in this community who don't give money at all. And that worries me because often people who don't give money don't believe that more is possible sometimes. But what worries me even more is that somehow they think that whatever their gift might be isn't important, that it doesn't matter, that the place somehow belongs to somebody else and not them. And I think that's a problem too, because it's only when everybody who is part of a congregation feels like it's theirs and that they're giving of themselves, including their money, but not limited to that, that's where the energy really comes from. I don't think we can make rules about that. I don't think that we can say you must or you can't or you have to. But I think we need to work on cultivating that sense of belonging, of that everybody matters, even if you've just arrived or you've been here for 50 or 60 years. I worry about talking about all of this, but really when I ask myself the question, how do you talk to people about a budget? It's actually pretty simple. You just talk about what you love and how that's showing up, or how more of it could. Talk about what more is possible. And even if you want to be bold, kind of turn around and imagine that you're talking to the congregation that you love, that you're a part of, from 10 years in the future. Looking back, what do you hope will be true? What gifts will you bring to make all of that happen? Let us sing.
Invite you to rise out of your spirit as we sing hymn number 318, 318, We Would Be One.
To
Thank you. Please be seated.
Say the words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. So let us begin. Let us go forth in the strength of our joy and the power of our compassion and begin our lives again today. This is what we are made for, to love the world, to care for one another, to learn one more thing and let it change us. May our lives be our prayer until we gather again. Go in peace.